Hello, I'm Super Orange Cat here today with another Made in Abyss video. This will be my quick review for Season 2, Episode 2, which aired last night at 12:30 a.m. on Toonami. So I'm going to give some things I liked about this episode, some things I didn't like about this episode, and tie it up with a big old bow at the end. Now, first things first, I'm going to cover the things I liked about this episode. One thing I really loved was the amount of focus on our main trio of Riko, Reg, and Nanachi. And I mentioned this last week that the show really stands out when these three are on the screen at the same time. As if you remember from the first episode, a large part of it was focused on this new secondary cast that, like I said, I didn't necessarily like that much. I didn't feel any much connection to. But when these three came on the screen, even though the only interaction in that episode was Rico defecating, it still felt like a much better part of the episode. And again, and that was a major focus of this episode. The second one was just the characters interacting with each other, especially going into the main conflict of the episode arising, that being the fact that someone interloped when they were sleeping. And that's another thing I liked about this episode was that concept of the episode where all of a sudden Reg's weird arm trap thing didn't work. Nanachi didn't sense this entity coming, but this entity came, took some of Nanachi's fur, took some of Riko's hair, took the picture from the package that they were trying to send up that got destroyed, literally marked out Riko's body with an upside down person, and marked a line through Nanachi's head, leaving Reg suspiciously untouched in that, which I thought was pretty interesting. And I'm not going to say anything here, but I've been a bit spoiled as to what happened there by a friend. But all I'm going to say is we're going to meet a character probably next episode that, based on how this character has been foreshadowed to me, I will not shut up about. This will be my favorite character in the history of maybe anime. If my friend was like 100% accurate about what this character does and what this character is. But I digress. And yeah, and I still like the mystery around it. Like, all of a sudden, you go to this weird area where there's this force field, and then you have these almost puppet-like organisms come out, and they can speak the language. They can speak English, or I presume in the actual version it's Japanese to Riko, which I thought was pretty interesting. And that's setting up an interesting thing going to the next episode, where we already got with the next clip for the next episode. We already know that they, at the very least, have a page from Riko's mother's works that she tried to send up. So we know that they, at the very least, came across stuff that Liza wrote, if not outright interact with Liza herself at some point. So we're going to get more of that lore, which really intrigued me because I'm very intrigued by Liza as a character, how little we still really do know about her. And I want to know more about. And that's something this show's really done a good job of kind of drip feeding without giving too much at one time or leaving you too starved for too long. And that's something that continues. Well, that's really, guys, for next week's episode. And at the same time, what only thing I can really say was a negative about this episode is definitely the first 15 minutes, just about nothing really happens. You basically have them entering, you have them escaping from the poison gas, and then they just kind of hang out for about 10 minutes of screen time. The only notable thing was them cooking up the eggs and the whole hijinks about cooking them up, and the whole cute thing of making Nanachi eat like a rabbit for a few seconds. Outside of that, not much happens, but again, it's like a comfortable, fun little time. And it's a type of show where, if even though it's kind of a little bit of a filler into an episode, it doesn't necessarily get boring because these are interesting characters. Like Riko, Reg, and Nanachi on their own right are interesting, and their interplay I think was really interesting too. And that's why I said I really like their interactions in the first episode, even though they're on screen for like 3 minutes last week. And that's something I really liked about this episode. And yeah, this was a solid episode. If I had to rate it, I would give it like a 9 out of 10. And I'm excited for next week because, again, we get a little bit more of Liza lore. And I love me some Liza lore. We'll probably get introduced to the character that my friend said I would probably really, really like. So who knows? Let's have some fun. I am the Super Orange Cat, and that is all.